Hey, remember the last time I tried to upgrade my truck's sound system and ended up with a sub that sounded like a rattling fridge? I spent an afternoon hunting through forums, watching endless YouTube demos, and even calling a couple of installers just to make sure I wasn't buying a piece of metal that would just vibrate my seats for no real bass. If you're sitting on the fence about the Sundown Audio U12 V.2 D4 and wondering whether it's worth the cash, stick around. I'm going through the exact kind of questions you probably have before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why a 12-inch subwoofer is still a popular choice in 2024. For most daily drivers, you want something that can drop a solid thump without needing a massive enclosure or a separate amp that eats up power. The U12 V.2 is a 4,000 watt peak, 2,000 watt RMS unit that advertises a dual 4-ohm voice coil, DVC, and a 30mm Xmax for deeper excursion. Those numbers look impressive on paper, but the real test is how they behave once you actually mount the thing in a modest-sized trunk. Installation is where the first practical trade-off appears. The sub comes as a two-piece kit, the driver itself and a separate mounting plate. That means you'll have to spend a little extra time aligning the plate, drilling pilot holes, and sealing the edges to keep moisture out. If you're comfortable with basic hand tools and have a decent amount of space in your trunk, that's a manageable project. People who've never done a sub install before often find the two-piece design a little more fiddly than a pre-mounted single-piece enclosure, so factor in a couple of hours of tinkering. Now, the motor design. Sundown uses a cast-iron motor frame with a solid pole vent channel system. In plain English, that's a way of saying the sub can dump heat more efficiently while staying sturdy enough to handle that 2,000 watt RMS push. In my own testing, after blasting a few heavy bass tracks for an hour straight, the cone didn't feel hot to the touch, and there were no signs of distortion creeping in. That's a practical strength. You get consistent performance without worrying about the sub walking or overheating on longer road trips. On the flip side, the U12's 30mm Xmax, while decent, isn't the deepest motion you'll find in the market. If you're aiming for super low frequency rumble that you can feel in your chest at a club-style party, you might notice the difference compared to a 40mm or larger excursion model. For most everyday drivers who want punchy bass for highway cruising or a decent home garage jam session, the difference is subtle. But if you're a basshead who wants that subterranean shake for every drum hit, you might feel the U12 is a step short of earthquaking. One of the biggest questions people ask is whether the dual 4-ohm configuration actually gives you more flexibility. The answer is yes, but you have to understand how. In a parallel wiring scheme you end up with a 2-ohm load, which lets you reach the higher end of the RMS rating if your amp can handle a 2-ohm load. In series, you get an 8-ohm load, which is gentler on the amp but limits peak output. If you already have a solid 2-ohm capable amp, you can squeeze out the full 2,000 watt RMS. If not, you'll likely wire it in series and accept a bit less power. That flexibility is a real advantage for people who already own an amp and want to maximize what they have without buying a brand new power plant. Speaking of amps, the U12 draws about 25 amps at RMS. That's a decent chunk of current, so you'll need a power supply that can comfortably deliver that without sagging. A common mistake is buying a cheap, low-output amp and then wondering why the bass sounds weak and the sub feels tired. Pairing this sub with a 500 watt RMS, 2-ohm capable amplifier gives you a balanced system that feels lively without straining either component. Where does the value actually sit? Aside from the headline wattage, you're paying for the combination of a robust motor, decent cooling, and the turbocoil option. For someone who already has a decent amp and just needs a sub that can fill a mid-size trunk, the U12 V.2 hits the sweet spot. You get a respectable amount of low-end impact without the need for a huge, custom-built enclosure. The price point is competitive with other 12-inch, 2,000 watt RMS subs, and because Sundown is a brand that's been around for a while, the resale market holds up reasonably well if you ever need to upgrade again. Who should buy this? If you drive a pickup or a mid-size sedan, have a bit of trunk space, and already own an amp that handles 2-ohm loads, the U12 V.2 is a solid match. It's also a good choice for someone who wants a sub that can handle both music and occasional movie-type low-frequency effects. Think of the occasional whoosh in action.